Hello everyone and welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. I'm Josh, joined as ever by Ewan Patterson because we need to extract some Arkham info from your brain today, because I'm sure you saw earlier on that there has been a leak that a new Batman Arkham collection is coming out this September physically at retail, which, you know, I'm sure got you very excited that you're finally going to be able to play Arkham Origins remastered once again. Well, no. That's what I thought. I saw this listing and I thought, well, the only reason that they're going to, release another version of this collection is because they're finally going to introduce this long sort of, well, it's like a game that just gets absolutely no love from fans or the publishers themselves, but that is not happening. It's going to be the same collection that is already out there digitally, retailing for around £40.
Yes, so it's the Return to Arkham stuff. I think Vivendi did that, I can't remember. It's Return to Arkham, and then you have Arkham Knight thrown in for good measure. So it's £40. It's only releasing in Europe physically in a nice little steelbook thing, and it's got a nice little Batman 80th anniversary sticker on the top left, but no Arkham Origins. And it's kind of weird, you know, you're calling it the Batman Arkham Collection, and then there's
when you're missing a vital key of the puzzle. Because I know you like Origins way more than I think anyone else. And I hadn't really played it, so I've always been wanting an excuse to go back and sort of give it a go, because I know it played into the plot of Arkham Knight, even if it was just like in villains turning up. But I've always wanted to sort of experience it because I know a lot about it, I've watched a lot about it. And yet, why does WB just keep kind of pushing it to the side, pretending it doesn't exist? Like, everyone's so focused on what Rocksteady's done and what Rocksteady is doing next. And yet, WB Montreal have been quiet for so long. They were relegated to doing the DLC on Arkham Knight. We know they
really liked that DLC as well. So,
and they obviously did
Suicide Squad, which
got cancelled. And now, apparently, they're working on a Court of Owls game.
Yes, which is likely to be,
it's supposed to be the most exciting thing ever.
Yeah, so basically, WB Montreal have been kind of, according to reports, basically put through the ringer. Jason Schreier from Kotaku did a report, I think it was December 2016, where he talked about how the Suicide Squad game got cancelled. Obviously, if you've played Arkham Origins, you'll know that the ending, you had Amanda Waller coming back to Slade Wilson, and then obviously the handheld tie-in to Arkham Origins Blackgate, also included some little Suicide Squad Easter eggs, and then after that we had the Assault on Arkham animated film, which was about the Suicide Squad infiltrating Arkham Asylum, which was kind of had, you know, it was based on the Arkham aesthetic, but the continuity was kind of a bit here and there. But yeah, there was meant to be a Suicide Squad game that got cancelled apparently because the co-op stuff wasn't impressing Warner Brothers at all. Then there was meant to be a Damian Wayne Batman game, but I think that's fallen to the wayside as well. And then now we also have this Court of Owls game, but it looks as though Warner Brothers Montreal have like loads of different things going on at the moment, and we kind of don't know what plate's going to stop spinning next.
Well, this is kind of what I wanted to hash out today, because obviously both WB Montreal, like you mentioned, and Rockstar have had all of these potential plates spinning for a long time now, and it's not necessarily their fault that they haven't announced anything. I mean, Montreal potentially more so than Rocksteady because they've had more chance to work on a new game, but at the same time, like, when are we going to find out something new? Because the last we heard, the last rumor I know of was in May 29 when a QA tester who was just about to start work at Rocksteady tweeted out a gif of like the Justice League, and then it was deleted, then it was replaced with something else, which, you know, that has long been rumored that their next game is going to be a Justice League game, not just a Superman game, which was kind of not corroborated, but lent into by actor Kevin Conroy, who obviously voices Batman in Rocksteady's Arkham games, as well as the animated series and a bunch of other stuff, who retweeted Rocksteady's 4-year anniversary, happy 4-year anniversary of Arkham Knight, kind of hinting that he might not be done with the series and might be coming back. Ewan, is he going to come back? What is actually happening? Because obviously the end of Arkham Knight was so vague and ambiguous.
The thing is, Kevin Conroy is the best Batman. I have to pre-qualify all my statement that he's the best Batman of all time. The thing with this is that Kevin Conroy tweets about this quite regularly. A lot of fans reach out to him to tell him how much they love his performance in the Arkham games, and why wouldn't you? Because he's great in everything he does. But the fact that he's tweeting about this potentially precludes, you know, the fact that maybe he isn't already involved in discussions that the next Arkham game centered around Batman is in fact the Origins vein, because obviously Kevin Conroy did not voice Batman in that title. It was Roger Craig Smith, and then Troy Baker did the Joker as well. And so maybe that is our first big clue that this isn't going to actually be set after Arkham Knight, and I think there is scope to kind of explore the world after Arkham Knight. I wrote a thing on the website the other day about how a Batwoman game would be really cool set after that time period, but I think for all intents and purposes, if you want Warner Brothers are a big fan of the status quo of Batman. They love having a Batman who is, he's at the peak of his career, he's got all the, he's flirting with Catwoman, he's not committed to Catwoman, they're flirting, and they kind of love that idea, and the timeline that we have with Arkham Origins, which is not to say that they can't do anything exciting with it, definitely lends itself to that idea of a Batman, slightly younger in his kind of his career, but also, he hasn't done anything crazy like blown up Wayne Manor and lied to all his allies that he's actually alive and they're making his own death. So they haven't got to deal with any of that stuff basically. And I think it would. Conroy, it makes sense to have Conroy back for a future Justice League game, but I do think Rocksteady may have potentially driven themselves into a bit of a corner with Arkham Knight's ending and how they figure out a way of addressing that whilst also doing Justice League. But the good thing as well is that we already had loads of Justice League references throughout the Arkham games. And in Arkham Asylum, I've been playing through both Arkham Asylum and City over the weekend. There is a newspaper that actually mentions James Gordon arresting members of the Injustice Gang. So I think maybe if they are going to do a Justice League game, maybe it'll take place before Asylum and all that as well, because there are so many years that this universe could work with.
That would be interesting. Yeah, I didn't even think about sort of the possibility of Rocksteady actually going back in time as well and setting their Justice League game before the events of Asylum or whatever. I think, like you said, for WB Montreal, there is so much scope and so much scale to explore a Batman, like you said, at the peak of his powers in between Origins and what we got in Asylum. There's all the stuff with sort of like the sidekicks and Robin in Nightwing and everything that is just sort of hinted at towards in City and then Night, but yet left unexplored. I think that would be a good relationship to kind of, actually dig into, and whether or not they actually will is or whether they'll just sort of leave it as like set dressing or whatever is, anyone's guess. But that would be a cool thing for me. I think you could then double down on the sort of co-op elements, because I know before it was cancelled, Suicide Squad was going to introduce a lot of co-op elements and potentially up to 4 players. And I think you could still do that within the Batman universe and the extended Bat family.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point as well regarding Justice League, because I think I recall a while back when Greg Miller had Kotaku had Jason Schreier on. I think it was I forget what kind of, is it the Kind of Funny Games podcast? I'm fairly certain that they had some sort of discussion about Justice League being the last thing that they'd heard about the title.
Right.
And it would make sense with the Marvel's Avengers coming out that maybe DC lean with something similar, and maybe that's why they've kind of had to pivot and calibrate their efforts. Maybe they're looking at this new Avengers game and thinking, well, how do we compete with the games as service DC title, which again kind of lends into rumors that we've heard about the next Batman. Yeah. We had that Arkham Universe rumor the other year. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe genuinely this is the kind of thing that we're going for, and that's going to raise a few eyebrows either way. But it'll be interesting to see whether it is just a Rocksteady solo-fronted project, whether Warner Brothers Montreal are actually helping them on that while also doing their own solo Batman game. It really makes my head hurt because there's so many different things that we know have been cancelled that they've been working on and then haven't been able to finish, and I'm just desperate for a new Batman game.
I think that's very silly what you mentioned there about the Avengers, because we did a podcast discussing what the Avengers, the impact that game and Spider-Man is going to have on the superhero landscape as a whole in the video game world. And I think if I was WB, I would be kind of very scared now. They were the top of the game with the Arkhamverse, and now since Night, even though I like that game more than I think a lot of people did, they like you said, they've sort of potentially wrote themselves into a corner. And it's all eyes are on where they go from here. How do you innovate? Because even though those games were great, I'd argue they didn't really have another evolution, like a real evolution from what we really saw in Asylum. Yeah, they added in the Batmobile, yeah, they added in a lot of additions to the combat system, but kind of the core gameplay fundamentally remains the same or similar.
Which is why Arkham Origins is such a delight, because they did so much of the detective mode and the crime scene stuff, which is really, really
delicious
cool.
segue.
Why is it not in the collection, man? I don't know. It's so annoying. It's one of those things where I'm really interested to see where they could go with this, because like I've constantly make a big deal out of the fact that, in the space of 4 years, Marvel have stolen a march on DC completely, when DC have 4 main AAA Arkham titles out in the wild, and that we're already on to the Avengers after just one Spider-Man thing. It's very weird.
It's so odd, and I think it's more to, again, this is pure speculation, but I think that might be more to do with sort of WB as a publisher rather than the core developers themselves, because we've seen the way they treat not only this franchise, but other franchises like Injustice and Mortal Kombat, or Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor. They are very focused on profits and business, like all businesses are, but to an extent that I think potentially overshadows the actual games themselves, because I mean, when Night came out, that was a complete mess on PC, and they didn't get around to fixing it because they were focused on the DLC, and I just feel like when it comes to WB and their games, the focus is very much, like you said, on trying to monetize as much as possible, and maybe that's why we might see an Arkham game set in a live service sort of open world, or maybe we won't, but I'm sure they're absolutely more than any other publisher, looking, like you said, how can we monetize every element of this? How can we change it?
Yeah, I don't know. I was going to ask you what your dream Batman game would be, because I was excited about the prospect of a Batman game. But honestly, if they found a way to do Batman Beyond and have Kevin Conroy and Will Friedle get back to reprise their roles as Batman and Terry McGinnis respectively, that would just be the best thing ever. Could you imagine Rocksteady working with that like Neo Gotham world?
Oof.
Just hook it into my veins right now.
Batman Beyond is a real strange one because I watched it as a kid and I have a huge reverence for it. I couldn't tell you any of the real plots. I played the, was it Return of the Joker game on PlayStation 1, and I enjoyed the movie as well. But I can't remember any of it, and yet I would still be so hyped if they made this game. When they released the Batman Beyond skin, I think it was for Arkham City, that was the most desired piece of video game content of my lifetime, potentially. I was like, this could be something special. And like you said, it would be a great excuse to bring the voice actors back and do something different, this brand new version of Gotham set in the future. It would skip over, you know, the potential problems of the end of Arkham Knight by giving it a potential clean break as well.
In fact, 20th anniversary of Batman Beyond this year. They've got a big old panel planned at SDCC 2019. Wouldn't that be a shocker if they're just out of nowhere just do an Arkham thing at Comic-Con? They never do, but how great would that be anyway?
Listen, I'm not saying this is definitely locked in, but this is absolutely locked in, and I want to know what you guys think down in the comments.
It's also the 80th anniversary, Josh. It's the 80th anniversary of Batman in general.
It's all coming together. Are you guys excited for any of these potential games? Will you be picking up the remastered version again come September? And are you as potentially worried as us for the future of this franchise?
Just in general.
Just in general, just scared of everything. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments. And as ever, I have been Josh, joined by you and Patterson. You've been watching WhatCulture Gaming, and we will see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
I wish you had the Batman outro noise.
What would it be?
Turbines to speed.